In this lesson, we're going to take our first look at Marvelous Designer in this project. Just go through a quick guide, well, as much of a guide as I can give to some of the tools. Firstly, so this is your 3D window. What really helps is your preferences. If you go to Gizmo and World Coordinates, it means your Gizmo will work like 3ds Max. And if you go to Settings, User Settings, and go to View Controls, you can set 3ds Max preset. And that means that when you click your central mouse button and hold down Alt, you'll be able to maneuver around in the 3D space like you do in 3ds Max. And it makes things a lot easier. So a couple of the simple things that you need to know are these. Polygon, rectangle, circle. They allow you to draw different shapes. If you click rectangle, you can just type in the dimensions that you need. So we could do 500 by 3000, and then we have a giant piece of fabric. And if we press sync, that will show up in the 3D space. And this is what I was talking about, the gizmo being in world coordinates. It now enables you to turn around, whereas the gizmo would move around locally to this, which you don't really want. It comes with basic settings to turn it into a fabric. So if you press spacebar or click this little arrow, it will simulate, and then it drops to the floor. And we can pick and grab and move areas that we want to try and fold it whilst it's simulating, and pause the simulation. You know, and that's how you can hang stuff off rails if you were doing tiles or anything like that in a bathroom. We can let that drop to the floor again. Another handy little trick is, let's just pull this off the floor and then unsimulate it. If you hold down W and click anywhere on the fabric, you can add a pin. A pin will hold the fabric where you've pinned it in 3D space, so you can either pin it to, you know, if your avatar that you bring in is, say, a sofa and you want it to be in a specific place, you can pin it to the sofa and it'll stay there. So if I simulate again, the fabric will drop, but it'll stay around where the pins are. As you can see, I know this fabric's a bit of a mess, but it's just a quick example to show you. So we can go to pin. This is Marvelous Designer 4. It now has the ability to remove all pins, which is very handy. You couldn't do that before. So we can remove all pins, simulate it again, but we can just press this button here, which will reset it to where it was. And we'll go through a couple more little tools. So if we Control C, Control V in this window and hold down Shift, we can move it in the same axis, and it just copies it. And we're synced. Now we have a second piece. So we'll select our first piece and we'll move it up, and we have our second piece. And what we'll do is we'll right click and we'll flip that vertically, and that should put the normals in the right place. And we can move this so it's somewhere near underneath, and we'll show you how to stitch two pieces of fabric together. So this little sewing machine is the segment stitching. So you'll get the hang of this quite quickly, I think, once you've given it a few tries. So let's just say we pick this edge and we want to stitch it to this edge, and we'll see it's stitching the wrong edge to the wrong edge because they're sat right next to each other, because we picked this one up and copied it. So that edge would stitch to the outside edge, and that edge would stitch to this inside edge. So we can Control Z, get rid of that, and stitch from there to there, and stitch from there to there. And now we have two stitched edges. And the same thing, stitch from this edge to this edge, and that does the end, and this edge to this edge, and that does the end. Now, just to show you as an example, if we stitched from this part to the outside part of that, we would have the same effect that we got a second ago, which is twisted, because you're stitching it to the wrong corner. You're stitching it from that corner to that corner instead of this part to this part. Or sorry, instead of this part to this part. So that's it stitched together. And now if we simulate this, you'll see that it pulls the fabric together, and creates like a pillow. Now that'll hit the floor and it'll flatten out. But before we do that, if we select these two pieces of fabric, so select one, hold down shift and select the other, it allows you to select more than one. And the pressure, it means we can fill it with air. So we'll put that on 12. Usually fill something up like a pillow, and press space again. Oh, and there we go, it's floating off into space. So we'll put that down to 3. And we'll see what happens now. Still floating off into space. Let's put those back where they were. We'll reset that. Oh, we need to pick this one and bring it back around into the correct place. And we'll put the pressure down to 0. In fact, what we can do is we can go to click on basic fabric. We've clicked on this, and now we've got both of these selected. We'll go to preset and we'll just tell it to be a cotton preset, and that way we know we're simulating a real fabric. And then we'll go back on, select these, turn the pressure right down to 0. Again, let them simulate and touch the floor so it flattens out. And we'll unpause that, and then we'll just add a little pressure of 1 and see what happens. Nothing. Pressure of 3, not 31. And let's see what happens there. So now you can see it's starting to fill up with air and float away. So we'll put 2 and see if that works. As you can see, it can be temperamental. So the reason that's doing it is because you've only got 2 pieces of fabric stitched together. In the next lesson, when we create, in a later lesson, we'll create some bed sheets, and we'll show you how to stop that by actually putting a piece of fabric inside as a duvet inside a duvet cover. But in the next lesson, we'll just look at draping some fabric over our sling chair that we looked at earlier, which is a lot simpler than creating a duvet, and should hopefully be a good intro to Marvelous Designer.